Good afternoon. The Sefer Yereim brings that another exemption to the malacha of tzulbeah, of coloring, of dyeing, is that is when it comes to dyeing foods. He writes that it is not the norm to dye foods, and therefore, since it's not the norm, it's not a problem of tzulbeah in Svia Be'oklan. There is no prohibition of coloring foods. This is the opinion also of the Or Zarua and others. The Raman Darchei Moshe does quote from his father that he heard from Rav Avram Mintz that he had a practice not to pour red wine into white wine because that would color the white wine red, which would be a problem of tzovea. However, the Ramah points out that goes against the Yereim, and ultimately the Ramah brings another proof and sides with the Yereim that in Tzviya Be'ochlan that there is no problem of coloring foods. This is in fact brought in Shulchan Aruch in Siman Shin Chaf 320 Seif Yud Tes number 19, where he writes that it is permissible to do something which may cause the food to become colored. Again, the primary reason is because normally we do not color food specifically for the aesthetic effects, but rather for practicality or because that's just part of eating it. Additionally, it's not typically the food is not kept as a permanent item, and that is the malacha, at least min Torah, is only when it is permanent items. So the fact that it's temporary, together with the fact that one typically does not color foods for purely aesthetic purposes, is why we generally assume that ein svia ba'ochlin, that under normal circumstances, there is no problem of causing food to become colored. The Mishnah Berurah quotes this Ramah as well, and it says that even one can even put red wine typically into white wine. That is not a problem. However, he does point out to Mishnah Berurah that one should be cautious that if there's inherent benefit to the coloring of the item itself, of the food itself, for example, if one plans to color some form of food and keep it around as for decorative purposes, or certainly if they're going to keep it around permanently, like a project made with noodles or something similar, then that would be a problem. Food is not inherently removed from the malacha of tzolveya. It is simply that when it is done, not in a permanent manner, and also not for an inherent aesthetic purpose, then it is permissible. It's important to note, therefore, that some are strict on Pesach in particular when there is a halachic preference to specifically have the dalet kosas, the 4 cups of wine, be red. So some will add a drop of red wine to color it. So there's a benefit beyond just the fact that it is food, that it is temporary, but there's a halachic preference, and therefore there's a real purpose in coloring it. So therefore, some suggest that to be cautious for that, to pour the red wine first and only afterwards the white wine. And that way, it's more diluting the color of the red versus coloring the white. So again, typically speaking, while there is a debate, the most assume and the general practice seems to be that we're not overly cautious with the problem of tzulveya ba'ochlan, that we hold ein tzviya ba'ochlan. There's no problem of coloring foods unless there is an inherent benefit to the color being changed. And then there certainly is room that one should try to be strict. But again, under normal circumstances, if something, it's part of eating and it's just going to happen throughout the course of eating, then there's no problem of tzediyah of coloring foods. Have a great day.